Hello and welcome to Fats on Film. I'm your host, Hannah Ogilvie, and this is a podcast where we talk about all things fat and body representation in film, TV, and wider media. Today is my guest, writer Caitlin Kearns. Hello, Caitlin.
Hi, it's so nice to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you on the pod. I'm so excited. For those who don't know, Caitlin has been a supporter of this pod from the very beginning. So I feel like we're already firm friends, even though we've only ever interacted on social media.
Oh, I'm an OG. I'm here for it.
You are an OG, absolutely. So how's your day been so far?
Yeah, good. Like pretty chill, pretty chill. Had a really mediocre lunch though, which is always disappointing. But I decided to treat myself
Sure.
to a katsu curry,
Uh,
and it came and it was literally like cold,
uh,
like
no.
cold, like it was horrendous. And then
Oh.
yeah, which is the most like first like I ordered myself a katsu curry. It was actually cold, but like it was mildly annoying. I'm not gonna say my life's a disaster.
I love that. Yeah, like first world problems. Like I actually finally decided to get a curry for my lunch and it was cold. I had it delivered to my house because we have the amazing
Exactly.
network that we can get things delivered via our phones. But you know what? It was cold. But that still sucks because I would be upset by that because I very rarely eat out like that for lunch. So if I had finally gone, you know what, I deserve to get something a bit
Yeah,
bigger for lunch for whatever reason, and it turned out to be a bit disappointing. Yeah, I'd be disappointed. I'd be on this
yeah.
podcast saying the same.
So I'm usually all for cheap and cheerful, but I was like, you know what, we're gonna go all out lunchtime. I've
Yeah,
had like a good week. Treat myself, but that's what I get.
that's what you get. You'll never do that again. The universe,
Back
no, Caitlin.
back to Greg's and McDonald's for me. That's it. Like I'm done.
Oh, right, tangent already. So when I head down to London, my in my real life, I have a job in an office. When I have to go down to London every 2 weeks, and on the way back, I get on the train back and I go via Greg's and I get my two sausage rolls for my dinner.
Yep.
I wouldn't change it. I mean, I could go M&S, I could go Pret. It's not gonna hit as well as Greg's.
Nah, like again, I'm a huge Greg's fan. I've got the Greg's Crocs from pre. I believe you think you guys call it Primark. We call it
Yeah, we
Primark
do.
in Northern Ireland.
I had no
Um,
idea. I know people do call it premium, but I didn't know that was the distinction. It's like Northern
yeah,
Irish and British or in UK, yeah.
yeah. I don't know if what why we call it Primark, but
Uh-huh.
yeah. No, my Greg's Crocs from Primark are one of my when I used to be on dating apps.
Yeah.
That was one of my pictures with me cradling my Greg's plastic clog.
I love it. Did did
Yeah.
it did it work? Was it a good like
But
helpline?
people were more interested in those than me, which absolutely fair enough. They were like,
I get it.
where did you get those?" I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna reply to you because you addressed my shoe before you addressed me. But yeah,
That's
no.
where we are. We're like, Caitlin's here. Greg's shoes are up here.
Which is actually
Unfortunately.
fair.
I mean, oh, I wouldn't say that. I think you're just as good as the
This is
Greg's.
good. Thank you so much.
I mean, I'm all about bringing people up. So that's what we do on this podcast. Caitlin, we are here to talk about School of Rock. I'm really excited to get into this because I hadn't seen this film. I might be lying actually. Like my partner will listen to this, and be like, "No, we watched it like 2 years ago." And I'm like, "Oh," but I think it's like been 10 years.
Wow. See, I'm this is my comfort movie. So I've
Oh,
seen it
is
like,
it?
yeah, this is one of them. So I see this maybe
Oh,
3 times a year. So
whoa.
it was it
Okay.
was it was really interesting watching it with like a more like critical
Yes.
eye and being like, oh, I've never noticed that. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I like it's like the blessing and the curse of this podcast now because I watch everything with this lens. And so my last episode I recorded with Iona Smith, we talked about Shrek. Obviously everyone loves Shrek, right? And then all of a sudden I'm watching this childhood classic through this lens of like, is it fat phobic? Like, no, what have I done? But yeah, I think like I again to your point, I hadn't watched this film definitely with that lens. So I think there's a lot to discuss here. School of Rock is a comedy musical film released in 2003, directed by Richard Linklater, who also did Boyhood, which I was like, when I read the name, I was like, is that the guy who did Boyhood? Yes, it is. And it's written by Mike White, who plays Ned Schneebly in the film. And he also, most recently, is the showrunner for White Lotus, if you've seen it. that stars Jack Black, Joan Cusack, Sarah Silverman, and Miranda Cosgrove as a little baby Miranda Cosgrove. And it made $131 million on a $35 million budget, so not a bad return at all. It was the highest grossing music themed comedy until Pitch Perfect 2 in 2015. So
Wow.
that's an accolade I didn't know existed.
That's a very specific. Yeah.
It's so specific. Like I was like, what other films are in this genre? In 2015, it was turned into a Broadway musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber, and then it was then adapted into a TV show for Nickelodeon in 2016. And Jack Black received a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actor in a Comedy or Musical, but lost to Bill Murray for Lost in Translation. And I'm going to say, boo. Boo to that.
Boo, boo, boo.
100% right. I was like, I know at the time Lost in Translation was seen as this really like, oh, it's a bit edgy and oh, but now we look back at it going, oh, it's subpar. It's fine.
Subpar at best. Yeah, exactly.
It's about two white people being incredibly xenophobic in Tokyo. like where you know what? We had lower standards in 2003. So I do think Jack Black really holds up in this. So we're gonna get into it. But yeah, I do think he was robbed. So, Caitlin, could you please tell me and the audience what School of Rock is all about?
Absolutely. I was trying myself to come up with like a succinct way of summing up this film, but I felt a bit like that bit in the film where Jack Black's trying to explain to Mike White or Ned Schneebly about what's happened, and it's like, and there was this girl and there was this guy and they were gonna. So I googled a kind of short synopsis and then altered it slightly. So
okay.
Dewey Finn, a failing amateur rocker, secretly takes up his friend's job by posing as a substitute teacher. Bearing no qualifications for it, he instead starts training the students to form a band. Chaos ensues.
Yeah, that's it. So I think the reason why we're talking about School of Rock is Jack Black is a notable fat actor. And when I was watching this, I couldn't believe how young he looks in this.
And how kind of not fat. Like,
yeah,
he is fat, but you know, like,
sure.
You kind of go, oh my God. It's like looking back, you go, like what?
Yeah, I agree. I didn't know how to say it without sounding disrespectful, but yeah, I think because he's quite popular in the zeitgeist at the moment because of the Mario film. I've been seeing him a lot. And I compare him to this. I'm like, oh, actually, like he is like substantially smaller in School of Rock. But, and I wanted to ask you, his body size is like integral to his character in this film. What do you think like the film is trying to tell us by the fact they've cast a fat actor as Dewey Finn?
So I was thinking a lot about this actually, about what he represents and his body represents. And I think it's that thing of equating kind of fatness to anarchy and fatness to like joy and fatness to like all really positive attributes, I think. But I also noted that like, I think I could be wrong. He's the only like fat actor in the film, with the kind of only fat character in terms of the adults in the film. And so he comes in as this whirlwind, this figure of like anarchy and joy and pleasure and destruction. And yeah, so I think that's kind of I it's interesting because I don't know if you know, like Mike White wrote this for Jack Black.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
So they were neighbors. And Mike White didn't even really like Jack Black. He thought he was really like loud and quite annoying. Like, I might be misquoting the story, but then he was like, what if this guy was like a substitute teacher? And they kind of just wrote
wow. Oh, that is so interesting because like how that's come about is actually from like not the best like or positive place, but maybe getting to know Jack Black and how he is as a person. Because again, obviously I've never met the man, but from what I've seen of like interviews and just how he like holds himself on red carpets and stuff, he just does seem super fun. And he has this really like he's so endearing, right? And I can imagine, as say he was your substitute teacher, I think he would just be the most favorite teacher in the school, right? Because he's just so silly and fun. And I know the whole premise is that he doesn't know how to teach. So he's not going to teach the kids like English. And I know he's trying to teach the kids about like Christopher Columbus and stuff. But you can imagine the kids told him that. So he could record it for the video for the lab. It's interesting you say he embodies like anarchy, because you're totally right. Because he talks about rock music and what that means for him, and for a lot of people who love the genre, like it is sticking it to the man, you know. And so in a way you're right, his body does represent sticking it to the man, I'm using air quotes here, of like the beauty standard of this idea of what we've been told for years and years and years at this point, what is considered healthy or aspirational. But what's also very interesting about Jack Black is he's an incredibly talented individual.
Mm-hmm.
So he is aspirational in that sense, because, you know, I'd love to be able to sing and write music the way Jack Black does, and acts as well. Obviously, can't knock his acting talent, but he's in a body that we call uninspiring, or something we shouldn't aspire to emulate.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wrote down he's because he kind of starts off, I suppose, in that kind of slob archetype. You know, the first time we see him, he's kind of performing and he's in kind of mad rock mode. But then we go to his apartment and he's kind of face down on this bed and he's kind of unkempt and he's kind of, you know, but he has ambition and he has talent. And like I can't remember where I read it, but like as somebody pointed out, like he's a talented he is a talented musician. It was in the film itself because it's when he gets kicked out of his kind of original band, and they said, oh no, you're a great guitarist, but it's not about that. So I think it's really interesting that he is acknowledged as being like good at what he does. So it's not like he's just some guy who's like, oh yeah, I want to be a rock star and has nothing to back up. Yeah, so I find that quite interesting that he is actually quite capable and charming. And there's kind of a relative lack of body, gross body jokes in it as well.
Yeah, they I was going to get on to that. So they do mention him being fat a couple of times. And he himself calls him fat a couple of
Mm-hmm.
times, granted. But then when he's asking the kids to get angry at him, and Lawrence, Larry, king of keyboards.
King.
Absolutely. Oh my God. I just love, the kids are so good. It's funny because when we were watching it, my partner's like, oh, they're just not all very good actors. You know, they I read that
Yeah.
it's picked them more because of their musical talent, and then the acting came second. But I think that's what makes it so endearing, because like they're so young and so baby. And yeah, Larry just such a sweetheart. And he says, was it, what do you call him, like, you're fat and you smell of body odor.
You're a fat loser and you've got body odor or
There you
something.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, so, and the kids like pick up on the fact that he is fat. I think you're right, at the very beginning we see him kind of fall into that lazy freeloader slob, potentially delusional.
Mm.
He tips into that because he can't pay the rent. He is self-centered, and even when the fact that he sabotages his best friend's career potentially, but identity theft is not a joke, Jim. He like takes an edge job at the school, and instantly, like, he's not likable to begin with. He's
No.
quite rude to well, Miss Mullins, John Cusack's character. He comes in, he's just like, right, I'm hungry, like, who's got food? And he takes food off one of the kids, and he doesn't want to like bother. He don't. It's funny because I don't know where in Dewey's head he thought this was going to go, because he gets there, he doesn't even try. He doesn't even try,
No.
like, lie better.
He's terrible at lying. And like the whole Mr. I love the way he doesn't know how to spell Schneebler.
I know, and
That cracks me up.
yeah, and they're meant to have been friends for like years and been in
Yeah.
bands together. Oh my God, I know. Like, and this is, I think this all is this character, right? He is the center of his own universe. And to your point about when he gets kicked out of the original band, they say like the reason we were kicking out is because of like the 20-minute guitar solos, and turning up late. And again, this is the
Mm.
idea of like self-centeredness. And I think there, there's a sense of like self-indulgence, and then you could equate self-indulgence to like self-indulgence with food, and therefore, like, you could be bigger because of that. So I think his body does represent those qualities that he is also showing, not just through his body but through his actions as well. So yeah, so he gets to the school. He's like barely even trying to like pretend to be Ned. And he says something, I can't remember if it's on the first day or maybe even the second day, but he's mentioning how he's hungover. And he was like, does anyone know what that means? He's like, you're an alcoholic. He's like, no, I was drunk yesterday.
It's a disease. You've got a problem. Yeah. Freddie Jones.
Freddie Jones, rest in peace. It's really
I
sad.
know, that was so sad when that happened.
Yeah. I well, again, like for this, I knew it had happened because I remember it when it hit the news, but obviously when I was doing the research for this, it came up again. And I was just like, oh, it's just so tragic.
Yeah,
Like,
so sad.
yeah. So, yeah, but a fantastic character. Like,
He's
really,
great.
yeah. I think he's probably the best of the kids.
In terms of the
Miranda
acting.
Cosgrove, yeah.
Yeah, Miranda Cosgrove is so kind of, she's the only one who's really like stage school, but that totally worked for Summer because she is so like perfect and kind of like,
Yeah, totally. But yeah, he says, I've got a headache and I've got the runs. And that plays in, and I've mentioned this a couple times, that like the disgusting element of fat people. So we talk about where there's a like almost like a lack of like I don't know if this is the right word, but like table manners or like common decency that a lot of films like to portray fat people as having. Like, you know, they'll burp at the table, they'll like fart, they'll shit themselves, like all these things. And when I heard that from Dewey, I was like, oh, there's that trope, you know. He has a bit of a rant at the kids, and he says, this is when he's having a rant about the man, and he's like, Miss Mullins is the man. Well, I'm the man. And he goes, the man is going to call you a fat, washed up loser, so do yourself a favor and give up now. So this is like Dewey's, like, I guess, bump in the road of self-confidence. He doesn't know whether he's going to achieve his dreams and his stardom, but he makes a point to call himself like fat, washed up. What, like, when you hear that, what does that make you feel or think or imagine?
It's interesting because like I hadn't really picked up on that, but of course he does, because then he calls himself kind of, he makes references to himself later, but in a not so negative way. But I think, yeah, it's interesting at that point that he chooses to acknowledge that and to say that and to use that as a negative against him. Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to articulate myself, but it's very interesting from what came before and also what came after in the film. I think we all have, even as confident as a lot of us are in our bodies, we have moments of kind of going, oh God, what things might have been different if ... And who knows, like I know years ago I listened to the commentary for School of Rock, and there's one with Jack Black and Richard Linklater, and when he gets kicked out of the band, apparently there was a whole bit where the drummer was English, and the English guy kept going like, Dewey, you've let yourself go, man, like you need to lose weight, like you look like so really interestingly like that. So I wonder if that, so they'd filmed that, so I wonder then if that kind of played into, because somebody directly said that to him.
Yes. Yeah, I totally hear that. So it's kind of like he's responding to potentially that previous criticism, which we as the audience haven't seen.
And sorry for my English accent off the top.
Oh my, you're good. You are good. Don't worry. If anyone's offended, I mean, like, you know,
well, they're English, so
I mean, oh yeah,
love y'all.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I live here, so I'm not from here. I live here.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I think that you've got a really good point. So when I heard that, it just from my own personal experience, it just reminds me of whenever like we see fatness as someone letting themselves go. So it's really interesting you say that they actually had filmed that scene. It was in the script, that they comment directly to that. And I it's this idea that our body is our vessel, right? Some people believe that being fat is, I mean, you know, morally wrong. It's a sin. It's unattractive. You know, all these negative stereotypes. And I think this idea of if you've let yourself go to gain weight, as if it's a choice, like to gain weight, then you're holding yourself back. Is interesting. So you're letting yourself go, but you're holding yourself back. You can't. There's again this idea of like fatness doesn't equate to success. But interestingly, the film does comment directly on that myth, I guess is probably the best word. And we'll get into that one because I want to bring in Tomika in a second.
Yeah.
And then probably the main reason why we're bringing up School of Rock on this podcast is their scene together. But Tomika is one of the school kids, and she is, I should say, she's a black character, and she is easily identifiable as like the bigger one in the class. Like not even like from a fat point of view or a body size point of view, that she's actually really tall as well. And I clocked it more this episode, well, I guess it's this episode, but this rewatch, because when there's a scene where she's with the backing singers and you really see the differences in body shape and body diversity. And I actually think that in itself, that even that one, 5 second, if that 2 second scene was really important for me. Just, to see that like these three girls of varying sizes, colors, weights, all coming together to like have some fun and like choreograph something that they can all do. And I thought, okay, that's great. I love to see that. But she's first introduced to the audience when Dewey comes in and he says he's missed lunch and he asks if anyone's got food, and it's Tomika that puts up her hand. And again, I was like, oh, why is it the fat kid? I was like, that's not nice. And then he comes over and he grabs like her half-eaten sandwich, and like you see like in her desk she's got sweeties and candy bars, and you're like, oh, okay, so like they're not telling us like explicitly, but you can imply that like, oh, she likes to eat. From then on, Dewey calls her turkey sub.
It is it's something, but it's very funny to me. But it's all the nicknames he gives them. But
yes,
yeah.
It's I totally hear you from like a sense of it's funny because of the context of all the names. He's not doing it to be an asshole to her. He's not doing it because he's like,
or to be fun. Yeah. But also, I think it's him not realizing how like hurtful that could be to her, which is funny because you're like, my man. You can't just call a little girl turkey sub, like.
No, you're right. But this goes back to this idea, like he is completely self-involved. He doesn't he doesn't see how his actions impact other people. He doesn't hold any responsibility for himself. So yeah, you're right. Him calling this girl turkey sub, he just sees it because he's literally just got a turkey sub offer.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, that's now your name. But like, you can imagine in the playground, all the kids picking up on that and then calling her that, and and we find out like from Tomika that she's very insecure. She's very self-conscious. So as Dewey has realized that all these kids have some kind of musical talent, he starts putting together his own rock band. Oh, I guess we should say like the whole reason for the film. I think we've missed this point. So the whole point is he wants to make a rock band so he can compete in battle of the bands and beat his old band and like kind of gain some kind of respect and
get the money for his rent, which I kind of forget. I'm like,
oh my god, I totally forgot about the money. Yes, really good point. Yes, so there's the 20 grand prize money, right? So he's like, okay, well, I'm going to use these kids. So again, it's all for himself, right? I'm going to use these kids for my own reasons. And he pretends that it's for a school project where all the schools in the state are competing for it. And these kids, I don't know how old they're meant to be, maybe like 10 years old.
Yeah, I think
eat it up. They're like, of course, this is
rock band. We all know rock band.
All know this project. So he starts putting together the band, and he's picked upon the musicians and he's put them onto place. So you have Zach, who's the lead guitarist, Katie, who's on bass, Larry Lawrence is on keyboard, and then Freddie Jones is on drums, and then Dewey's going to be lead singer and also guitarist. And they're like, the teacher was involved. And he's like, yeah, like, I mean, this is part of it, like, and they just believe them. And then all the other kids are like, who are, there's a class of 20 of them, so 15 of them don't have anything to do. And there's I don't know what their name is, but he just goes, you mean we're not in the band?
No, it's so heartbreaking. And apparently, again, here's some random behind the scenes tea. Apparently that kid is like he was the coolest. Him and Jack Black used to go and play games in Jack Black's trailer, like on breaks. Like they used to play like PlayStation together because he was just so cool, and he was just such a nice kid.
Oh, he sounds so cute. No, it's such a heartbreaking line reading. Like, and then he's like, well, hold on, just because you're not in the band doesn't mean you're not in the band. So after lunch, at lunch, actually, we should say, Lawrence comes up to him and he says, like, I can't be in the band. And Jerry's like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm not cool enough. I'm not cool enough to be in the band because, he's I guess he thinks of himself as a bit of a geek, a bit of a nerd. And
And it is slightly, I suppose, stereotypical that is Lawrence is an Asian student as well.
that's a really good point. Yeah, that's
That
a really good
he's
point.
nerdy and he like doesn't think he's cool enough. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of a bit of a trope there, I suppose, as well.
Yes, there probably is a bit of a trope there. Yeah,
I
that's a
can't
really
speak
good
to that
point.
as a white, as a white person, but it's something I only, again, rewatching in this context, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe is that something? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. So there's probably like a bit of a trope about like high achieving Asian kids, and also the fact that he plays piano, which is quite
Yeah.
that kind of like musical instrument influence into like Asian children, like to encourage them to do better. I guess it teaches discipline and things like that. So yeah, you're right. I think there probably is something within that, which again, like I'm a white person, I can't really speak to it, but just from my own consumption of media, we are kind of aware of this trope, right? Dewey, Dewey gives him a pep talk, and he's like, "No, man, like you're majorly talented. I want you in the band. I chose you for a reason." Lawrence like, okay, like cool." And then they do this handshake. It's such a good scene. Let's rock today.
Yeah. Slap it, shoot it, can boot it. Yeah.
Yes, they'll have to practice on that. That's a very long handshake.
I love that at the end. Yeah, it's great.
It's
I love
so
yeah. I love the thing to think that he thought of that on the spot. Like
yeah. Yes, but then this is to your point, right? Like this is the joy. This is him bringing in this idea of like he is seeing something in these kids that no one else is seeing because the school, which is this private school, 15 grand a year private school, and that's 2003 money,
I was
They're
gonna
not-
say something like weird there. I was like, I'd pay 15 grand for Joan Cusack to like tell me off, and I'm like, Caitlin, don't say that. Don't say that. But
That's so good. Oh my god. I love Joan Cusack so
she's so good.
much. She's brilliant. She's brilliant in this. But yeah, so they pay 50 grand a year, which is a lot of money. And so that you can imagine, and to your point, Joan Cusack's character, Miss Mullins, is very hyper fixated on the performance of the school and are the parents happy. So yeah, I can imagine like this, you're going to pay 15 grand a year because you want your kid to get results, and results mean like good grades, they means getting into the best schools. It's not about musical talent. Like that's like a, again, I from what I'm reading from the film, I can imagine a lot of these parents have let their kids learn instruments not because they want them to like grow that specific talent, but more around the discipline around learning an instrument. Dewey comes in without any of that propaganda or corruption, and he's like, no, these kids are just really talented. Like, you could do something more here. And it doesn't have to be, I think that's the other thing the film is kind of trying to teach us, like, you can have interests that don't lead into money making schemes. And I don't know about you when you were growing up, Caitlin, but like I definitely had that through my upbringing, this idea of like, don't focus too much on not hobbies, but like thinking those hobbies could turn into careers. Yeah, when I was growing up, I used to play golf and karate, and it wasn't from a place of you're going to become a golfer. And it wasn't even from a place of like, this is a good hobby to have. I remember my dad used to say, oh, this will be really good when you do business.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And
it's an ulterior, it's not the joy of actually doing it, it's like an ulterior motive to get something, which usually is relation to like money. I mean, I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky. My dad is an actor, so he couldn't say anything.
I see.
So I grew up with a dad who was a jobbing actor. So if they turned around and said, well, you can't make a career out of it, I'm like, well,
yeah.
I mean, my mom's still pinning hopes I'll turn it around and become a lawyer, but like I'm like, it's not gonna happen, Mom. She's nothing to do with the arts. But yeah, it's interesting and even, seeing friends of mine who did stuff with me growing up, and now they've all got, you know, proper jobs, but they all speak, you know, to like, oh, drama give me confidence to give
Yes.
presentations in my
Yes.
job,
Hmm.
instead of going like, yeah, actively working. And I think as well with the instruments as well, it's probably as well for like on their CVs and to get into
Yeah.
like Ivy League schools, it's like, oh, having an instrument's really good on your
Yeah.
record or whatever as well.
Absolutely, because like they'll do the exams, they'll get like the different qualifications. Because I remember when again, this was a conversation I remember having in the house, which was when I was picking my GCSEs, and I really wanted to do performing arts because like everything else I was doing was like really academic, and I just
Mm.
wanted something which was, I mean, performing arts kids can come after me for this, but like I want something that wasn't as like academic. I want something that was a bit more fun, a bit more practical, in a sense of like I was actually doing something rather than
Yeah,
writing something
absolutely.
down. And my dad being like, well, why would you pick that? You know how you had to get like there was like different squares and you had to pick like a subject in each square. So I can't remember what else was the other subject in the performing arts one. But I remember it might have been history. And I was like, ugh, I
So
was doing
funny.
geography. So I'm not doing both humanities. But I was like, no, I really want to do performing arts. And he was like, no, like, you know, you should do like more another, like, you know, again, I apologize to anyone who I offend, but like a real GCSE. This is my dad's words, not mine. And I
Yeah.
was and I was like, no, I really want, I remember really pushing for like, no, I really wanted that kind of like respite of like doing something that was more just for me. It wasn't for this goal of, yeah, A levels or degree or then ultimately job. And you know, I did win that one. And I did do performing arts. In that, I did the Lambda exams. I can't remember. It was like
Oh yeah.
London art, music, blah blah blah. And yeah, so I can imagine they have those kind of qualifications for instruments, right?
Yeah,
But
doing your grades and stuff, like, yeah.
yeah, yeah, there you go. Grades, that's the word. So yeah, so you're gonna put that on your whatever it is, your application for uni,
Yeah.
and you're gonna look a bit cooler or a bit more
Like appealing or kind of more, yeah,
perfect.
exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm you just again to go as a quick tangent before we move on.
No, please
You
go.
you saying that about your GCSEs, I they knew that I was a hopeless case when it came to anything academic. I did art, I did drama, I did music,
Uh-huh.
I did media studies, I did
Yeah.
digital media. They didn't. I did not have to do a language. I did not have to do a science because they were like, you know, something. They had took one look at me. Were like, she's it's not gonna go well, is it? So because everyone's like, how did you get away with that? I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. So the only proper one I did was RE, which is compulsory here. I don't know if that's like elsewhere.
Oh, really? No, I didn't have
Yes,
that.
Northern Ireland is a wild west.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Even though I went to an integrated school, it was very strange.
Oh,
Which
okay.
again is still like it's funny because I forget that's not everywhere because
Mm,
we're still segregated
sure.
by religion, which is ridiculous. Anyway, another podcast for another time about Northern Ireland, but and maths, and that was it. Really, everything else was
Yeah.
like mucking
Oh, wow.
about.
Yeah, you totally missed because like the rules are mine where I had to pick at least one science and you had to do a language and then you had then you had English. There was you know like sets. So
Mm.
like sets within maths and English. So if you were like in the bottom set for English, then you only had to do English language.
Oh yeah, we were the same. Yeah.
Yeah, but then if you were higher up, then you had to do English language and English lit. And I was in I was in the second to last group. I don't know, like in hindsight, like I write now. So the idea that like I apparently wasn't very good at English is wild to me. But then I had so I was in the second to last group and I had this most amazing English teacher. His name was Mr. Jarvis, and he was just legendary. And I don't know what I like up until this point, up until year 10, it just wasn't computing. And then he just kind of like literally almost like opened the door for me. And I was like, oh, this is what you mean. And it just clicked and I did really well ultimately in the end. But it really does show like what a good teacher can do.
Yeah.
Like, it really can like completely flip everything on your head because, you know, I do empathize with teachers, this idea of like having like classes of like 30 odd kids per class. And, oh my God, like how do you give that, you know, that one student who might only need like, you know, just one lesson of one-to-one time, but you have to like divide your time. I don't know how honestly they do it.
No.
But luckily, I had Mr. Jarvis, and he absolutely like taught me like that I could do more. I think I had just resigned myself to this idea like if I get a pass, I'm good.
Yeah.
Because like again, like further on, you need at least a C in maths and English language to do anything. If you wanted to go into A levels, if you wanted to go to uni.
A lot of jobs, even like
Yeah,
I
it's
said,
like the
this is
bare
someone
minimum.
I got a D in GCSE maths originally, but then I went to college and did like a weird equivalent one, which was really easy.
Oh, okay.
Like
Oh, good.
City and Guilds award. I was like, okay, I guess.
Oh, sure, I'll take it. But
But
yeah,
yeah,
like
you're right. Teachers are like, I never really had in school a teacher like who was like really struck a chord with me because I just hated school. I think I was just like, I think I was so close to that happening. I did have a singing teacher called Ross. Shout out to Ross if you're listening. He might be.
Who
He was
knows?
a singing teacher. He is a fabulous fat cabaret performer.
Oh, amazing.
Who like has bit glitter in his beard, and
Oh,
they're just fabulous, and I have so much love for Ross, and Ross really taught me like so much, not mainly not about singing because we just end
yeah.
up my mum would like be like, I paid however much money and you two just stand in the kitchen gossiping, but like happy cool fat person
Yeah.
existing and being like, you know, in the world and being unapologetic. So that was a big one, which kind of ties into this, I suppose, with the music
Yeah.
stuff as well.
Well, I was going to say, like, absolutely does tie into this. Like, that was going to be my segue back in, which is this idea of like having influential teachers that see something in you, and with Dewey, like he sees something with these kids that no one else is seeing. You know, from what we were saying, like they were just so much more academically driven, and so he gives these kids like a different focus, I guess. And it's funny because Summer is the what am I trying to say? Like she's trying to hold back. She's like, no, like I want my gold stars and my like no demerits. Like where does my grade come in this? And she's like, and she gets granted the music or band manager role because she's obviously like an absolute going to be a tyrant in any boardroom that she enters. Um,
And
he
there's
get
the groupie, the line about the groupies, they sleep with the band.
I was going to say the groupie thing really is odd to me. I was like, you are telling these 3 10-year-old girls that they are going to be groupies, not thinking they're going to Google it when they get home. And obviously, Summer does. They're sluts. They sleep with the band.
Like, how did she even know she's 10? Like, I think it's her
I
mom.
did.
I think, is it not her mom that tells her that?
Oh, is it? I thought she Googled it. I thought she
Maybe
was
she
like, I
did.
looked it up online.
Oh, she maybe did. It would be weird if her mom said that, but who knows?
Yeah. So then, yeah, he gives other roles so we get the 3 groupies, and then Summer becomes band manager. He assigns roadie roles to a couple of the kids, lights to one kid. Oh, I think Tomika is a roadie to begin with, isn't she?
Yeah, or security or something. It's
Yeah,
like,
well, I think, and then the other bigger kid,
well, yeah, I was going to mention
Frankie.
him. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So he's security, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because like it's this idea of like kind of like brute force, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, whatever. Maybe it wasn't meant to be about that, but that's how I read it. But it wasn't until Tomika comes back to Dewey and says, oh, I don't want to be a roadie, and he suggests, oh, do you want to be security? I'm like, no, Dewey. This girl doesn't want to be security, like obviously. So, oh, and she says, I want to be a singer, and she gets very shy. So, well, I need to hear you sing. And so she finally does, and she belts out this most amazing voice. I mean, if she's meant to be like 10 or 11 years old, like it's incredibly mature for like a young girl like that to have a voice like that. And Dewey is blown away, like, holy shit, like I've got like amazing talent in this band. And he's like, okay, yeah, absolutely, you'll be a backing singer. Gives her a CD. I got what do you remember what CD he gives her to as her homework?
Pink Floyd,
Oh, is it
isn't
Pink
it?
Floyd?
The Great Something in the Sky. The vocal, there's like, check out the vocal solo on Great Gig in the Sky.
Oh, nice, good work.
I think this is from watching this film too much.
Well, you said you watch it 3 times a year. Like
that could be wrong. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. Like again, you will have your like like
it
comes in.
I will have my edit come in.
Yeah, which I'm obsessed with. But yeah, I think I was going to note that earlier about Frankie, the fact that like Frankie doesn't have a sandwich in his desk.
No,
Like
we don't know.
Well, maybe he does, but he doesn't want to own up to it.
No.
Frank, and there's no comments or anything kind of made out of his, but he is obviously been socialized as a man, so it's kind of,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like, we haven't spoken a lot about on this podcast just yet about the differences between how fat women are treated and fat men. But in School of Rock, you do get both examples here. Well, I guess I have kind of like spoiled my own one because we do talk about a bit of it in Shrek. But here we've got Jack Black, who is this fat character, is commented a lot, but it's not from what we see, it's not really like holding him back in a sense. He's still you could also equate this to him being an adult and being a bit more secure in who he is in the world. But he is very confident, right? The fact he comes in, he's got this like wild scheme to impose as his friend and hopefully not get caught out for like $1,500 of a week or whatever it is. Which again, I calculate it's like $100 a day. I was like, it's hardly any money.
Well, again, today I was thinking that too. I'm like, is that? Well, it doesn't say, but I mean, it must be like inflation. I don't know. Like...
yeah, let's blame inflation. It might be actually good money now, but it just seemed like so little. And yeah, so he's obviously very confident, and he's charming. Like, part of the reason why he does so well is because he's able to charm Miss Mullins, Joan Cusack's character. But with Tomika, she didn't put herself forward for the backing singer role when the other two girls did. And one of the reasons is because you can tell she doesn't want to bring attention to herself. She wants to make herself as small as possible. And as a fat woman, I totally get that. Like, this idea that like it's almost like not ladylike to be big and imposing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I when you said earlier about Tomika being tall, and so I kind of grew up being quite tall and broad more than anything else, I suppose. I was like the tallest person, like girl in my class, until I was 12, and I stopped growing. And then everyone just overtook
and then everyone
me.
took
Like,
over. Yeah,
I'm 5'5" now, so I'm kind of just about.
Oh wow, yeah, you
average.
really did. Yeah, you're totally average. That's so funny. Like, you like shut up before everyone. And
yeah, I was. I don't know. I was ambitious. My I was like, I have to be the tallest, quickest. But then by the time, everyone else started just going whoop, and I was like, oh, okay, hi. But yeah, it's that thing of, as you said, like shrinking yourself, and when you're so hyper aware of sticking out, that like and it's interesting how it's not touched upon if she's bullied or if that's
Yes, I was going to bring that up. Like, we don't actually know anything. We don't see much of the kids' interaction between themselves. Yeah, we don't. It's a really good point. But I guess just from her own, how she carries herself in the class, like her own body language, you can imagine either she has been encouraged to become small from the kids themselves, or maybe it's adults, or maybe it's her parents. Like, you just don't know. But she's definitely she has been told at some point her size is an issue. Like, she hasn't just so we find that she's wants to become backing singer. She's amazingly talented. Then the kind of band are banding, and they need to go for the auditions for the Battle of the Bands, and somehow they get out of class.
This is like another random point, but it's about the van, like Dewey's van. I'm like, does nobody like? Because a bit later, he takes Miss Mullen in his van.
Yes,
and I'm like, would she not be like, why are you driving this van?
Yeah,
like at any point.
Yeah, it's not very school teacher friendly, is it?
No, and he dresses very preppily. Like, I think that's another thing, like, and how he presents himself at different points in the film. So like when we first meet him, he's kind of not shaved, and he's wearing t-shirts and kind of oversized coats. And then when he goes into school mode, I don't know where he get his like immaculate sweater vest collection, but like
I know.
I love it. Like, does he just have them?
I have a note. Where we get it? I've put the bow tie ! Exclamation mark, floral shirt, style king.
So good. Like, yeah, I feel
he
like
looks great.
Like, yeah, he's like giving, like, I don't know, Butch. Like, I love it. Butch energy. I love it.
No, definitely a bit of butch energy for 100%. And I just love, yeah, apparently he has these like in his closet because they're definitely not actually Schneeblies because like
Yeah, because he's
a lot.
tiny.
He's a very thin man, yeah. So where have these been hiding? Who knows? He's got no money, so I don't know if he's bought them.
Or
Plot
like
hole.
stole them. Yeah, I was thinking that. I was like, he's got so many nice scarves and jackets and shirts. But hey, who knows? He might have thrifted them. I don't know, for the sake.
Yeah, we know. Yeah,
Um,
exactly. He's just a thrift king. So yeah, so you're right. The van is a massive red flag. Um, they get they get to the auditions and they find that the billing is full. They're not taking any more auditions. And oh, actually, just before that, that's when Tomika has her like crisis of confidence moment. And she says, "Oh, I don't think I can sing." And he goes, "Oh, are you nervous?" And she says, they're going to laugh at me. He's like, why would they laugh at you? You're incredibly talented. And she says, because I'm fat. Dewey or Jack Black, his face here is one of, I understand where you're coming from. It's like, oh, Tomika, like, okay, yes. But then he brings up Aretha Franklin. So, she's a big lady, and she has the most amazing voice ever. But people hear her voice and they want to party with Aretha, you know. He then says, who else has a weight issue? She's like, who? And he's like,
she's so
me.
cute.
She's so cute. She's so like under these like big eyes.
I
Oh, she's such
know.
a sweetie. And he goes, yeah, I have a weight issue, but once I get up on stage, people love me because I'm sexy and chubby. And she goes, well, why don't you go on a diet? And he goes, because I like to eat. Is that a crime? This scene is just brilliant,
It's
isn't it?
so good. I mean, it's just like, because it could go into, and the one thing I really love is he doesn't say, no, you're not. When she goes, because I'm fat, he doesn't go, no, you're not. He goes, yeah, and that's okay. Like, I love that he doesn't, because, I think in a lot of other films, they would have gone, you're not fat, you're beautiful, or like, you're not fat, you're lovely. But he's like, well, yeah, like, and as you said, it's something, and it chimes with him that he's like, sees himself. And I also like the other thing about him saying I like to eat, and I think there's a quite interesting thing that like Dewey's not like a good fatty, like he's not like I mean like he's not he does like to like he's seen as liking food, he's seen as being quite like indulgent, and I think that there's room for like all kinds of like fat characters on screen. And sometimes there are like fat people who really love to like eat. Like and because there's fat people who really love to eat, and so because I think a lot of the time we're so conscious of not portraying fat people as like enjoying food, or like that we almost go the other way where it's like seen as, I don't know, or if we do see them eating, it's like binging, whereas it's, so I think it's really, as somebody like I write a lot of fat characters, I think it's really important for me to show a range of experiences, especially with like food and their relationship to food, because it's everyone's is so complex. But I really like that he's like, no, I love to eat, I'm not gonna give that up. Like,
yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I think I can definitely get wrapped up in this idea of like, oh, like, why have they gone down that stereotype? But actually your point stands of like, no, because like, fat people can be every kind of character. And this idea that like, you're totally right. Good fat people and bad fat people. So your good fat people will be people who like constantly go to the gym. They're really watching what they eat. They're really mindful of how they carry themselves. They'll wear things that are flattering. Side note, that word is very triggering, so I apologize. Flattering. Oh, who gives a shit?
I hate that. Yeah,
it's trash, absolute trash. But then, yeah, a bad fat person is someone who isn't taking care of themselves. And again, I'm using air quotes because it's all bullshit. It's just like someone who does eat, someone who'll have takeaway, someone who'll have, who might not exercise as much as your other person. But it's this idea of like, well, not everyone is accessible as accessible as everyone else. Everyone is different. But we just have such a strict parameter of what is considered like a good fat person. Like if you're going to have the audacity to be fat, well, you should be good. That's how we'll accept you. And here Dewey is very just like, I am what I am. I like food. also, like, who doesn't like food?
Well, yeah, I hate when some people say that as if it's a personality trait.
Right?
They're like, I love food. It's like,
Nah.
that'd be like me being like, I love breathing. Like, I love, I don't know, like,
I'm a massive fan of breathing.
I'm really like fond of being conscious of being a human being. But yeah, no, it's yeah, but like, I think that it's something really like, and I remember I saw this in the cinema. I think I must have been like 6 or 7, but I think I mentioned in our first email, it's the first time I was like, I feel funny downstairs. Like when I saw Jack Black, I was like, I love this
Yes.
man.
You
First
got
on
a
screen,
beat.
my first on-screen crush. And then now as I grown older, I also love John Cusack, so I kind of wish I was in a Jack Black John Cusack sandwich.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like that is like the dream. But yeah, it's this scene in particular has always stayed with me, and like as you said, I think I've rarely, if ever, seen anything that's kind of frank and honest and to the point, and I love that. I don't know if you got a chance to read, so I found like the script of the original script online, and the scene was not nearly as powerful. I wonder if Jack Black maybe had a hand in that, because I've got a bit of it here if you
please go for it. Yes.
Okay, so this is the original scene. So her name is Laurie in this version. So
you did say
which is so as the others set up, Dewey pulls Laurie into the hallway. What do you mean you can't play? She clutches her stomach. I don't feel good. I feel sick. You're nervous? Why? What are you afraid of? They're gonna laugh at me. Why would they laugh at you? I don't know, because I'm fat. And it does actually say Dewey is stricken with its sympathy for this insecure girl.
There you go. Yeah.
But yeah, Laurie, hey, you've got something, everyone wants talent, and it's way more important than looks. You heard of Aretha Franklin, right? She's no beauty. He says she's no beauty in this version. When she starts singing, she blows people's minds. They all want to party with Aretha. And then he says, you heard of Mama Cass?
Oh, yeah, okay.
She weighed 300 pounds.
Yeah.
But when she was on stage doing her thing, people worshipped her. She was sexy, man. And then she goes, what happened to her? And he goes, she choked on a ham sandwich to like undercut that. Yeah. So there's like a joke there. But the important thing is you don't have to look some certain way. You're a rock star now. So they've obviously reworded that a bit. And I wonder if it is Jack Black looking at the script and going like, this needs to be phrased differently. Like, because it's nowhere near as powerful.
100%. I actually hearing that, I'm really struck by how underhanding they're being, and like, there's been a lot. I don't know if you've caught on to it on your like TikTok algorithm, but I've seen a lot of like the conversations around Cass and like how she hated her nickname, and like and her and the whole ham sandwich thing, and like how that's like a myth, and how it's like, again, it's kind of like the whole Elvis how Elvis died on the toilet myth, like all that kind of stuff. And you're just like, it's just making mockeries of these fat people, these incredibly talented and fat people's deaths.
They're not allowed dignity, and they're even in their death.
Exactly that. And I'm also really struck by knowing Mike White wrote that, and he is a thin man.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's loads of like really fat phobic stuff in the script.
That's really interesting. So yeah, I wonder, like, again, I don't know Jack Black to know like his own like relationship with his body, and like, if he's had to go on some kind of journey to like learn to love himself or blah blah blah, because these standards, as much as we talk about how they are stricter on women or feminine presenting people, they absolutely do affect men, and I think more so now than ever. They're affecting men, and I'd love to know if Jack Black has ever actually spoken about that. I'd have to do some googling to see if he said something, but I think his other comment I really love in his in the scene that we see is he says that he's sexy and chubby, and I'm like, to your point about how like this is your first crush, he is sexy, and like there's something, so like he's such a magnet. Like he's just,
and that's not a joke. That's not
no,
like
no, it's not.
That's not him saying it to her, like, and she's like, what? It's a fact. He's stating a fact, and I love that.
Yeah, he says I'm sexy and chubby. Those two aren't mutually exclusive. And it really reinforces, like you say, like, the fact that he doesn't try to dismiss Tomika calling herself fat. He doesn't try, that is a fact. She is a bigger person. She's in a bigger body. But that doesn't mean she isn't also these other things. And it is this language that we use when people call themselves fat, or like, or the phrase "I feel fat today." It's to make themselves feel less than, or to communicate that they feel less than.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, it's not a feeling. It's not a state of mind. It is, you are a fat person because you are literally carrying more fat on your body. And that's it. It doesn't devalue or mean these other attributes, which are incredibly positive, like, to Dewey's point, talent or sexiness or insert positive attribute here. Those can all still happen within a fat body.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful scene. And yeah, just the ending of like, and I like to eat, is that a crime? And here you have him actually asking the audience, is it a morality issue? Because that's how it's seen, right? Fatness, it can be construed as a lack of morals. We see it a lot with fat victims in like horror films, for example. They've usually done something hella nasty, or they've done something that's almost like deemed worthy to get the death that they end up getting. I think of like Zombieland, when
Yeah.
what's his face? What's the character called? Jesse Eisenberg's character. And he says, the different rules, and one of them is that you got to run. And then the film shows a fat man failing to run because apparently all fat people can't run. Side note, not all thin people can run either, guys. Like, it doesn't mean you can run if you're thin. You just go into like a marathon, it won't work. You have to train. It just drives me mad. So yeah, so like the film is going, oh, see, like, because you are fat, and we, again, these films act as if fatness is a choice. Then okay, well, you're gonna fall, you're not gonna run as fast, you're gonna get eaten by zombies. Or in the film Seven, which we're actually covering on the podcast soon, the very first victim is a fat man, and you just like,
and it's as if they deserve it.
well, yeah, exactly that. So I coming back to this film, I went really dark with horror, and I'm bringing it back to children's musical comedies. But yeah, like, Dewey is literally asking, like, is it a crime to like to eat? And the answer is no. Of course it isn't. Of course it isn't. And again, like, to reinforce this further in real life, I'm sure you'll have seen on social media, when you see a fat person on social media, or a fat content creator, like, going, what I eat in a day, and they are having a McDonald's for breakfast, maybe, or and then they might have like something else for dinner, and the comments like, of course you're eating that, like, you're gonna die young, some really nasty, awful things. But then I see straight sized content creators doing the exact same thing, and it's like, oh yeah, you get it, you deserve a treat, good for you, that looks great, and
You
I'm
go,
like,
girl. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. And I'm like, these are very different reactions to the exact same action, and it's purely because of the body that's consuming it.
Well, yeah, it used to be like such a, like, when I was growing up, like, that whole thing of like especially like thin women, like I'm so, oh my god, I'm so random, I just ate a whole pizza, like, hoo ooh woo, like, I'm so, like, whatever, which I think as a trope hopefully is dying, but it's, as you said, on TikTok, because then if a fat person was to do that, it's like, you pig, you're disgusting,
yeah.
you're whatever, and I'm like, well, they're not, there's no morally, but it's both of them are fine. Like, it's both,
Yes.
like, it's good, like, do what you want. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how people can put, like, there was what I actually, like, I'm like, absolutely good for you for doing this, what I eat in a day, is because I just think that the flack a lot of people get,
yeah,
because, or if they do eat a salad, they go, well, you're just lying, and you go, but how can you ever you can't win, that's the thing, you can't win, because, like,
cannot win, you cannot do enough for these people. Yeah, and I'm glad, like, there's a cynical part of me that thought during the scene, as much as I loved the scene, Dewey explains that, like, you're talented, people aren't going to care what you look like because of your talent. And in my head, I'm like, that's not true, because we, again, going back to Mama Cass, or Elvis, or Lizzo in today's
I was gonna
day
say Lizzo, especially
yeah,
as a black
exactly
fat woman, yeah,
as a black fat woman, like, these people are ridiculed, even though they are insanely talented. So as much as I really love the messaging and the meaning behind this scene, I was like, oh, unfortunately, that's not true. I want it to be true. I want it to be true
Of
so much,
course, yeah.
but it's not. And I was just really struck by that when I was watching it. It does. I don't mean to diminish the scene in any way, because I do think it's great. And like you say, like if you were 6 or 7 years old when you watched this, what an amazing scene to see when you're that young. You know, not only to see like an incredibly talented, influential a fat actor in the lead role, but then to see someone who, you know, who looks like you, who's the same size as you, be incredibly talented as well, but also sharing those same insecurities. Like, it's really well done, this moment between, and it actually, because you've told the story, it reminds me of like how you might view your singing teacher, you know,
Well, yeah.
this kinship, because you have this commonality in your bodies, and like maybe how you view the world, and your fears, and your insecurities, and how people might treat you. But actually what bonds you is that, but also your passion for music, and talent, and that's what bonds Tomika and Dewey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a good scene. But as you said, like, imagine there was an extra line or two of him going, people might be assholes, but you know something, like screw them if they don't like you,
Yeah.
like, you know. But it's just to circle back to, like, I think what I was saying earlier about the original script. So I said there's loads of fat phobia in it. What I mean is there's fat phobic characters. I wouldn't say there's kind of, it's, so her mum's a big part of the original screenplay, and her mum is a raging fat phobe. So that's,
Oh.
so yeah, I wanted to speak with you about Laurie's issues. As you can see, she's FAT, and hope you can keep an eye on her. Make sure she's not snacking during the day. Obese people are terribly stigmatized, don't you find? And then Dewey says, well, I don't know. And she goes, but you're a man and a just teacher. I don't really know what that means. Doesn't matter. But Laurie, she's a girl with big dreams, and she really should be only eating fruit.
She's
And
a girl with big dreams, and she should only be eating fruit.
and she was originally the keyboardist as well.
Oh my God, this is such an interesting change.
Yeah, I know, right? So like she was originally played the keyboard, and yeah, and then there's a horrible bit where mum, she says it, I get, this is just trigger word for horrible language. The thing is, Laurie could be brilliant, she could be a Mensa, but if she's a fat pig, no one's ever going to pay any to her, you know. And then Dewey tries to tell her about this thing called the Aretha Franklin weight loss study, and then it's like about, oh, dancing to Aretha Franklin 15 minutes a day, it makes the pounds fall off. And then they're meant to have the sweet scene at the end where they both dance to Aretha Franklin, but it kind of undermines the complete point. But there we go.
So this film had a very different view of fat people.
Yeah, and I yeah,
very different view.
It was just incredibly interesting, I think, like, and whether it was Jack Black or Richard Linklater, because I know Richard Linklater made a lot of changes or kind of suggestions.
Sure. Yeah.
Because the whole there's loads of stuff that was different. I mean, Ned was a different person, so like it was like Dewey's brother was in it, and it was, and so he was conflated with Ned Schneebly, and then they became one person. It's all very weird. It's almost like unrecognizable in terms of like story, or you know, there's some certain bits of dialogue which are like, oh, okay, that's from this and that's from this, but it's very different. And I specifically was looking for kind of the mentioning of kind of fat people in it, but it's
yeah. Oh, that's very interesting. I'm just going through Mike White's IMDb right now, because I'm like, has he ever wrote for like you know, I appreciate obviously he wrote this, but we now, you know, from you reading the original script to now, things have changed, especially getting rid of a lot of the kind of fat phobia in it. And I'm just going through now going like, has he wrote anything for fat people? Which I'm like,
I mean, I said I really love Mike White as a writer, but I'm trying to think myself. There's some fat characters in Enlightened, but they're not lead characters.
Sure.
And I suppose, yeah.
He did Good Get All. And John Carroll Lynch is in Good Get All, and I love John Carroll Lynch. John C. Reilly, is he big in that though?
He's not. I don't think so.
No,
like,
I don't think he is.
I mean, Jennifer Coolidge isn't plus size, I would say, but like she's curvy and like White Lotus, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to bring up Jennifer Coolidge because I don't know whether she'd find it offensive if I did call her. I would say she's like a small fat, right?
Yeah, now she would be, yeah.
Yeah, now she would be. Oh God, I fucking love that woman. I mean, I know everyone
iconic.
does. I know, it's so iconic. These gays.
So good.
Yeah, and again, like he's written Pitch Perfect 3,
Yeah,
really
he
randomly.
wrote the Emoji Movie too. He's got a very very
Ah.
career. Like, but now he's kind of just and he also was a contestant on Survivor. I have a lot of love for this man. He's very chaotic.
Yeah, he
he
is.
he like
Yeah.
on Survivor he just drank a lot of wine and just caused a lot of like mayhem. Like he loves reality TV, so I kind of feel a kinship with him.
So did he go on Survivor as a
A
famous
screen as a
person?
screenwriter, yeah, he was like, I'm a screenwriter. I wrote School of Rock and Nacho Libre. Um,
Did they recognize him? Because I'd recognize Mike White like
Mitch
that.
Neabley, because yeah, because he, I don't know if they did or not, but he also did The Greatest Race with his dad. He's done like a lot of reality TV.
Oh yeah. You
It's
know, I now you said that I think has unlocked a memory for me where I think I knew that.
it's very strange, yeah. But I mean, I have a lot of love for them. But I actually, when you think about it, and I suppose White Lotus is interesting because it's a lot of people with a lot of money, and so I suppose in that scenario,
Mm,
and there's a fat character. I don't know if you've seen White Lotus. There's a
just
fat
season
character.
one.
Well, the one who's pregnant, the
Yeah, in one episode. Yeah.
yeah, she's in one episode. Like
Uh-huh.
she's really the only visibly like fat character.
Yeah.
And I think from recollection that is mentioned in the script, like that she is like
Well, no, that's the whole point because it
yeah,
disguises her pregnancy.
yeah,
That right?
exactly.
Yeah. And again, I'm like, I'm sure like fat pregnant
That's
people,
totally how it works.
yeah, will be commenting on that one. I remember like this. I'm going off the tangent, but they literally did that with Heather from EastEnders, like 100 years ago,
That
where
was
like
so silly.
I know, and I'm like, that's not how pregnancy works, team. Like, don't get me wrong, like there is that show, like I didn't know I was pregnant type shows, and so yeah, some people go through pregnancy not even realizing it. But with Heather and yeah, I can't remember what her character name is in episode 1 of season 1 of White Lotus. They are
Mhm.
using their fat bodies as a reason why like they're disguising their pregnancies. I'm like, whatever. It's not how it works. So, after the most amazing scene, we
Yes.
go. So that's when this is when Dewey lies to the Battle of the Bands director and says that they've all got is it a disease?
Yeah, disease.
Stick it to the
Yeah.
maniotis or something like
And
that.
stick it to the maniosis, I think.
Leiosis, that's
But I think
it.
he says stick it to the mon. I think he says stick it to the
Oh my,
moniosis, which makes it somehow funnier. And all
it's
the kids are
funny.
just in the van, kind of like
No, Freddie
so
on the
good.
floor cracks me up, just lying. It's so good. And then so they guilt him into going, okay, yeah, okay, the band can play.
Yeah, but it was
And
It was Summer's idea
I was
because
gonna
Summer's
say
someone. Yeah, because I was like, I never picked up on that. I'm like, she's evil. Little girl's like,
so evil. Yeah. So Summer thought of the idea to get them in. So she's like, oh, we're not giving up. They've come so far. Then that's when Dewey realizes he's going to have to get a field trip signed off to get the band to the Battle of the Bands performance. So he starts to, um, I'm not going to say romance, but starts to charm Miss Mullins, John Cusack, and he hears from one of the other teachers that she got drunk once and did a Stevie Nicks impression, which was she was pretty good. So he's like, right, cool, I can get in here. There's like a kinship with the rock music. So he invites her for a coffee, ends up being a bar. And like really random, but the waiter, the bartender gives him the beer. Like he has one line of dialogue and I've not forgotten him since. He's like, are you sure you don't have coffee? I'm sure. And then just walks off. I'm sure.
I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that Simpsons bit, you know, when Marge is trying to order a coffee in a bar in Australia, and she's like, "Can I have a coffee?" And he's like, "Beer." She's like, "Coffee, beer, yeah,
Beer. Yes, that's it.
BECO." Like it's very much those vibes. Like,
That's a really good point. I wonder if that's a reference. So yeah, so Dewey is trying to butter Miss Mullins up to agree for the field trip, and he gives her a beer. He puts on Edge of 17 by Stevie Nicks on the jukebox, and she is in. She is feeling herself, and we start to understand that she is wound up so tight, but underneath all that there is this like fun woman, and she kind of agrees to this educational concert as Dewey spins it, and then he drives her back to her car, And then she kind of unravels and explains, like, she didn't used to always be like this, like, you know, it's these parents, you know, they want perfection. They spend $15,000 a year with me. She's under a lot of pressure. And from my memory, Dewey doesn't really say much in response. He just lets her rant.
Yeah, I think he just is like, yeah, like, because that's what she says about how like none of the teachers have ever. Though actually, I think when he says like when she says like none of the teachers have ever asked me to do anything in 6 years, and he goes no, and then he kind of goes, is it maybe because you're a bit intimidating?
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, I mean, she feels like she would rip your head off, right?
Yeah. When she makes that girl cry at the start, when she's
Oh
like,
my,
"Do you want to What do you want to hug?" And the crocus, like,
I'll
I
be good, I swear.
swear. Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
It's so good.
just to pick up on like this because this kind of scene is relevant. I don't know the musical super well, but I know for sure that Dewey and Principal Mullins are like love interests in the musical, which I kind of
Yes.
hate.
Yes, I was going to bring this up. So I saw it in the trivia for this film that originally they were meant to end up as romance partners, and I wanted to raise you because I don't know whether I love or hate it. There's a part of me that goes, I love it from a sense of like not every male and female character has to fall in love. Like
Exactly, yeah.
we can just be friends. It's all good. But on the other hand, have you seen Shallow Hal?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay,
Or
so
like,
I haven't. I haven't yet. It is on the list. Someone has already like wanted to do this, to do Shallow Hal on this podcast. So I'll be watching it for the first time for this podcast. But does he actually kiss Gwyneth Paltrow in that film?
I think at like the very end,
At the very end.
possibly. Um, at the yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I've literally tried to like
Block it.
acid burn out of my brain. But like, I think he kisses her, and maybe he kisses her when she's like thin mode because it's like, I mean, you'll see like the weird thing they do with the really bad fat suit. I'm always like with fat suits, I'm like, don't do them. But even if you're gonna do them, just make it not look like absolute dog shit.
I know.
But yeah, so I think he might kiss her at the end, as far as I know.
So okay, maybe once then we'll say if listeners are going like, no, they kiss multiple times.
Yeah, I'm very sorry, Shallow Hal fans.
Yeah, please. I'm sorry, they're coming out. The Shallow Hal heads, like.
Love that, the shallow heads. Yeah, exactly. And yeah.
But so yeah, my point was going to be because I've always found it very annoying how in The Holiday, Jack Black and Kate Winslet don't kiss. And I'm like,
Oh, they don't. Yeah, you're so
no,
right.
they don't. They don't. And it's always pissed me off because it was a whole big thing. And I know Kate Winslet spoke about how much people love The Holiday to her. And she was saying like how she really wanted Jack Black to be the romantic lead because she really liked his work. And I think her kids might have liked him and all this kind of stuff. But they don't kiss, even though they're meant to be romantic with each other. And so then I'm like, hold on, have I ever seen Jack Black kiss a woman in a film? And I have to say, I haven't seen all of his films, so I can't comment on whether that's true or not. But I do find it interesting how in School of Rock, they make it clear that they don't have a romance. The Holiday, he doesn't get the kiss. In Jumanji, he's not like a romantic person. He doesn't have that. I mean, I guess he's kind of flirting with Nick Jonas's character, but that's beside the point. But yeah, like I think like I'm just like,
does he kiss Lizzo in the I only watched I don't watch The Mandalorian.
No,
but I'm aware that I watched a little bit because I knew they were in it and they're together, they're a couple, but like it's not like lusty. Like he's never been a character who like if he's kissing someone, it's like gentle or like just a little peck. There's like never any kind of, I don't know, for someone who's so kind of, for lack of a better word, like carnal or like I don't know, like so like, you know, he's never really had that kind of role, which is like a shame.
Yes, well, this is it, right? It's a shame. Why haven't we seen Jack Black in a role where he literally is like he's a catch? You know, like even in The Holiday, it's played for a bit of a like they're together, like, and I'm like, no, it's like I'd love to be with Jack Black. Like he is fit. Like and there's something
and he is fit, yeah, like literally.
He literally is fit. And like in this, you know, going back to that scene, he says he's sexy and chubby. I'm like, yes, he fucking is. Give him someone to kiss. Like, you know, I want to see. Am I a perv? I don't know. I just want to
I
see it.
I think it's interesting that he has no, because it's not even like, oh, I don't want to get with Mullins and like, but he
No.
has no kind of attraction. He has no interactions with women in this film that are any way
Yeah,
flirtatious, because he doesn't
so
like Sarah. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, you're totally. I was literally about to say, because the only other character we get is Sarah Silverman's character, who,
He's a shrew.
yeah, but I also don't disagree with her. Like, I understand where she was coming from. Like, it doesn't pay the rent. He is a slob in his house. Like, he is like undermining her at every turn. Like, I don't blame Sarah Silverman here. But from the context of the film, she's meant to be like our villain.
Yeah,
In a film that doesn't really have a villain,
yeah,
she
you're
is
right.
the villain. So yeah, so there isn't this romance. So in the musical, they get together. And I there's a quick like kind of cast list of the characters of the actors who have played Dewey on stage, and they have all been like people of size. So they've carried that forward. They realize
Mm-hmm.
that that's an important part of this character, which is positive. So they obviously get together there. I'm glad I think overall I am glad it doesn't happen in the film. I like how they're just friends. I like how, because even our platonic friendships change us,
Yeah.
Hollywood love to pretend like it's all about true love, and then Shrek falls into this, and they'll change you and they'll love you for who you are. I was like, no, our platonic friends can do the exact same. Like, they can make us
Mm-hmm.
better people. They can bring us out of our shells. So yeah, so I do appreciate that they go down that route with these two. So what was I saying? So yeah, so they kind of prepping for the final show, and then Ned gets a check in the post, and and it says for Horace Green School, right? Well, Horace Prep School, I think it's called, isn't it? And he's like, I've never worked there, and he's going to ring, and Dewey's like, no, don't, hangs up the phone. It's like, I told her somebody has to make it out to cash.
That reminds me of my other part we haven't talked about, where he pretends to be Ned on the phone earlier, and he pretends to fumble the phone. He goes, "Hello, Ned Schneebly," like, and then doesn't carry that voice through. So like then like that ends me. I love it.
I
Yeah,
love that.
so
Yeah.
good.
So he that's a integral part to the story, because I say that now, like,
Yeah,
this is Ned
this isn't
Schneebly.
Schneebly. Yeah, so good.
No, it's good. So yeah, he comes clean to Ned about what he's been doing, but he's like so excited, like, but the kids are so talented, and he kind of goes like you mentioned earlier, that really like rushed kind of explanation of all the kids and how
So
cool they
funny.
are. And then Sarah Silverman walks in. She instantly feels the vibe. The vibe of the room is off, and she's like, "What is going on?" And he leaves, and she's like, don't tell her." And obviously, like, Ned instantly must have told Sarah Silverman, like, instantly. He goes to parents' evening, and he's got to give the presentation where he's like, "Oh, we're doing English, we're doing math, we're doing all the subjects that you'd expect your kids to be doing."
That's like me when I'm not prepared for a job interview, and I'm like, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Like, it's so funny. The kids are just. I've never been to like a parent teacher. I wonder if it's like a private school thing where like they all just sit and like look at you. It's not like a one-on-one.
No,
Like,
I've never known a parents evening like this. Maybe this is an American thing, but
yeah,
definitely, usually back in the schools I've been to, the teachers are dotted around, like,
yeah.
either like the dinner hall, or they're in their classrooms, and you've got like a schedule of going to see which one at different times. Yeah. So I don't know what this what I want to know what the other teachers' presentations were. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Did they have a
like,
PowerPoint?
yeah, I was gonna say, do they have a PowerPoint? Do they have like music? I don't know. Like, they have like
Yeah.
they have a six slideshow with like cool transitions. Like, I don't know. Like,
And like, also, like, I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know about you, but my parents couldn't give a fuck about what I was learning. It was more like, am I doing well or not?
yeah, or like, yeah, is she all was she all right? But yeah, like, I did it. My English teacher like called me overly emotional. I'm like, you know what? You're right. You
You're not
saw
wrong.
it. You're not
Yeah,
wrong. I
you're not
am.
wrong. Yeah, fair. It was an astute observation.
A straight observation, if not painful, when I'm like 15 and going through it. Like, I'm like, what do you mean overly emotional?
And also, it's like,
Um,
what 15-year-old isn't overly emotional?
Literally, I'm like, she needs to take a chill pill. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, it's so funny, and him trying, like, what does he think he's actually going to get away with it? Like, at
Oh,
this point.
I do, yeah, it's a really good point. I don't know what he thinks. Like, there's no way he left that apartment thinking Ned's on his side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Like,
He's a
poor Ned. Like, Ned's just got it from all corners because he's got like
oh,
both of these people who are incredibly like alpha.
such a good point. They are like, it's so funny because Sarah's doing that thing where she's like, you're being manipulated, you're being walked all over while doing the exact same
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, so yeah, he's giving this like awful presentation, and then the kids, and then he sees the police officer in the hallway, and he gets a bit frazzled, and like Ned and Sarah Silverman are there, and he's like, oh fuck, I'm rumbled, and then he starts like tripping over his words, and then the kids are like, oh, just tell him about the project, and then the parents like, what project, sweetie? And like, we're not meant to be starting until next quarter, but he wanted us to get like a head start in the competition. And then they try to explain, and then everything's all happening at once. And Ned's like, Dewey's like, tries to give compliments to all the kids. Like, Summer's going to be the first female president, and I'll vote for her tomorrow. Like, she's amazing. And then Miss Mullins comes in and is like, what's going on? And apparently the police officer said, this is not Ned Schneebly, like, this is Ned Schneebly looking at Mike White. And then Dewey explains that, like, no, like, I'm not Ned Schneebly, I'm Dewey. I've got to know your kids really well over the past 3 weeks, and they've really touched me, and I think I've touched them.
And the pause before, and they're like, oh my god, like
Summer's mom, performer of the film. Oh my god, like it's so
just holding
good.
clutching their children.
Yeah, and it's like, and then, because even the kids realize it sounds wrong. Like, yeah. They're like, oh no, and then like that, like his face completely changes because he hears it, and he's like, oh fuck. And then somehow he manages to run out of the classroom with 2 guitars in his hands, even though there was however many parents, a fucking police officer was there. Like, I don't know how he escapes. And he gets back to the flat, and Ned and Sarah, I don't know, what's Sarah Silverman's character called?
I was thinking this. I have no idea.
I have no idea. Poor Sarah Silverman.
Did they ever say? They must say what her.
They must. I'm on IMDb right now. Oh, it's Patty. It's Patty DeMarco, of course.
Of course. Sorry. Did they even say? I don't think they say Patty, because Patty's quite like a distinctive name. Patty DeMarco. And
Patty DeMarco.
Ned Schneebly's a great character name.
Ned Schneebly is an amazing.
You know exactly who that guy is.
I know him. I've met him many times.
Oh, yeah. Ned Schneebly. Yeah,
Ned.
Exactly.
Ned. Yes, so they're Ned and Patty, as we now know, are like upset with him, and he just wants to sleep. And so the next day, the kids all come into the classroom, and they're all kind of like reminiscing. They realize, oh, it wasn't real, but there was something about it was really, there was some kind of competition. We should still do the competition. And there's a really cool moment, and I can't remember how it actually comes about now, but Lawrence stands up to Freddie. And Freddie does that. You want to go? You want to go? And I was like, yeah, Lawrence, you stand up for yourself. Oh, and then Tomika backs Lawrence up, and I was like, oh, the 2 quiet kids, who've had probably arguably the bigger
journeys or arcs.
Yeah, self-confidence arcs, absolutely, are the ones who are like defending each other. I'm like, yeah, absolutely, go. So they decide, like, okay, we're still gonna go. And Summer lies again. The most brazen liar, lies to the bus driver that they're gonna go pick up Mr. Schneebly from his house. What bus driver just goes, yeah, that's completely normal.
To be fair, going back to school, we had a media teacher who would just take us on like trips that were totally not like, he was very much like doof and energy. We're like, he'd be like, oh, we're gonna go do some location scouting, and then he'd get like this random guy who'd like drive the minivan, and we'd all pile in, and like this wasn't allowed, like, and so like there'd just be this van going down. Like, we went to like the city centre one time, and I was like, why are you in town with Mr. I'm not gonna say his name, I don't want to dox him, it doesn't work anymore, but like, let's call him Mr. P. But like, Mr. P is like, he was yeah, so I don't know how they like, and they're like, he doesn't be like, oh yeah, it's totally normal for these kids to be like, we're picking him up from his house.
Yeah, totally normal, totally normal. So and then Freddie and Lawrence are the ones who wake him up to like get him and like, let's go. And he sees the school bus outside, and what did he say? It's like, that's so like rock and roll, or that's so
Yeah, so
metal or
punk.
something.
Yeah, so
So
punk.
punk, yeah.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. It's something like that.
Something along those lines. And they leave, and as they're leaving, they run into Ned and Sarah Silverman in the hall. Why are they not at work? This
And
whole
also, why is the door open?
Why is the door open? Why are they not at work? This is like
She's got to go assist the mayor.
the mayor. Yes, the mayor needs his assisting done. Like this whole film's about the fact that they work and Dewey doesn't, and yet they're not working in this very integral moment. So Sarah Silverman goes to, like, call the cops or call the school or something, and Ned's like, I'm gonna go. And she's like, "What do you mean you're gonna go?" He's like, I'm gonna go like see this battle of the bands. Like it sounds like a lot of fun." And she's like, "Oh, typical Ned, blah blah." And he rolls his eyes and he shuts the door in her face. So that's the last we see of Patty DeMarco. I mean, Dewey gets on the bus, and he wants to apologize to the kids. He admits he's used them, he's manipulated them for his own gain, and then is it Summer cuts him off and is like, "We gotta go, like, enough apologizing, we gotta go."
I
And
think so, yeah. I can't remember. Yeah.
so like they are totally like forgive and forget, like let's just move on. It's like, I guess, like from a mathematical equation, the amount of good he has done outweighs the bad in their eyes. Like his influence and his encouragement is a completely worth being lied to for the past 3 weeks. So they get to the theater where the show is at. They run, and of course, like, they're late. They're on next. They gotta get ready.
Of course they are. Yeah, exactly.
And they decide they're gonna sing Zach's song, Teacher's Pet, and they all get into their outfits. And Billy, who the hell was she spoken about? Billy.
I was literally gonna say that Billy is iconic.
I was gonna say Billy is like a lot of our drag queens today take a lot of influence from Billy.
Yeah. Oh, you're tacky and I hate you. It's just like,
You're tacky and I hate you.
Liza Minnelli. Like, I was like, could that as well.
I know. It's like, this kid doesn't know who Liza Minnelli is.
I just love the way he takes it too far with it. He's the one who pushes it too far with the insults to do earlier.
Yes,
and he's like, right, you detention.
Yeah, see
me after class. Yeah. But he's great. I love Billy.
Billy's great.
Totally unapologetic about being like,
yeah,
and flamboyant, and like, again, nobody seems to bully him either. Like, he's just
no. That's a really good point. And again, like, if we just don't see much of their dynamic, but like he's obviously not been bullied to the point where like he isn't hiding himself. Like he's not trying to act more quote unquote masculine, where he's a camp character, and he is also the fashion designer of the band, and
the band stylist. Can I be the band stylist instead?
Of course you can. Fancy pants.
Yeah, fancy pants.
So yeah, he's designed all the costumes, and because the band is called School of Rock, he hands Dewey a uniform, and they go on stage and they perform Teacher's Pet. What a banger of a song.
Good.
I've been singing it since I saw this film on Sunday. It's so good.
Just like, ooh la la la. And it's also so good.
The ooh la la's so good. And we get to see all their different costumes. So we see Lawrence with this most amazing hair.
The hair is so good.
Katie looks so cool with the bassist. Tomika, she's again like just this like trouser look, and
her hair looks amazing.
Zach's got this top hat on. It's just really fun and cool. And I remember watching it as a child, be like, oh, because obviously you hate your uniform when you're a kid, and you're like, oh, just this idea that you can have all this creative freedom with it is so cool. And they kind of
playful.
It's so playful, and they kind of allude to it earlier because like Freddie has rolled his sleeves up at one point, and Miss Molly's like, no, like that's not code, that's not school uniform. And so, like, I like how they bring it kind of full circle. They have kind of sabotaged their school uniform for self-expression, which is something that they weren't able to do at the beginning of the film because they didn't know themselves. They didn't know how to express themselves. And here they are completely stepping into, like, their power, their talent, their confidence. And so, yes, it was interesting. Again, this is part of Dewey's growth arc, isn't it? Like, yes, he is the lead, but he gives them all a moment to shine.
Yeah.
Whereas with the the other band that he was in, he wanted all the glory for himself because like he didn't know any better. He didn't want to share a stage with those guys, but here he feels equal to these kids and he's happy to share the stage. And yeah, so they all have these moments. Like Larry has a solo, Zach gets a solo, Tomika has this most amazing singing solo.
So good.
It's so good. And the parents have got to the stage, and there's like really nice moments between the parents complimenting each other's children. They get, the crowd loves this band, and they go off, and Miss Mullins has made her way backstage, and the woman's like if you haven't got a band or like a wristband or a ticket, you can't come backstage. She's like, well, I'm principal of the school, and she's like, right on. Like, right on, right on, right on.
It's so funny, and I just love that video. She's like, I'm so angry, but you're amazing, and like, and even that guy, the guy she flirts with backstage, like Fighter. He's part of Jack Black's original band. Is he not the one who replaces Jack Black?
Exactly that. So Spider replaces Jack Black, and he's got this most amazing glam rock pleather thing on. Good. It's so good. It's so camp. I loved it. And yeah, he's like body rolling, and he's like slithering his way over to Miss Mullins. And obviously, like, she mentions how she's like, I'm a principal of a prep school, and he's like turned on. He's like, yes, mummy, what's that? Like, clearly really into the disciplinarian of it all. So the results come, and the other band, Jack Black's
no vacancies, I think.
No vacancy. Well remembered. No vacancy, have won, and they get the $20,000. And Jack Black, or Dewey, is, first of all, really, like, he has a bit of a tantrum. He's disappointed because he thinks they're better. But so the crowd also thinks that they're better. And I'm like, yeah, how does School of Rock not win? Like, in what world?
I wonder if it's like a bribe thing, I don't know, or commercial.
Oh,
I've not been bringing in a little like side plot, like
conspiracy theory.
Maybe it was bribed. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think he goes back into that initial mode, like that kind of like, and even like I was going to mention as well that the fact that they do Teacher's Pet and not The Legend of the Rent, which is Dewey's own song.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Because that was, and then he goes, actually, let's do Zach's song's actually better, and actually owning up to that, and not just going, well, obviously my song's the best. But yeah, at the end, I think it's really lovely that they don't win. I think that actually, like, that's nice, because it's like sometimes you don't win the like big prize, but the prize is the friends you make along the way.
Yes, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be nominated,
Yeah, exactly.
No, but you're totally right, and I think like that tracks for like the whole reason for this film, or one of the reasons anyway, which is this idea that like not everything you pursue has to end up in this like money career, has to pay your bills sort of thing. So like the fact that these kids all have these hobbies, doesn't mean that they also like they can't have both. And we kind of see that where you see some of the parents disciplining the children for listening to the music that Dewey recommends them. Like, you can't listen to this music, no guitar, blah blah blah, because it's like seen as a punishment. Whereas like through Dewey, like they see like they can coexist. You can have this amazing hobby that's really expressive and creative, while also still having school and doing all that. So I think the fact that it doesn't win, and they don't win that like lump sum, feeds into that rhetoric. But the crowd wants School of Rock back on, so they do an encore. And the way Dewey's face lights up when he realizes it's an encore, and I imagine that Dewey's never had an encore before.
No, they're like this, the opposite. And like it kind of ends at the end of Teacher's Pet, it echoes the start again with a stage dive, because at the very start he does a stage dive and everyone actively moves out of the way. Yeah. Whereas this time he jumps in and everyone's like so into it, and like like, I love that.
That's it. It's a full circle moment. Like he gets to surf the crowd. And so they play, and then it goes into the credits, and we find that they've created the School of Rock as an after school program out of the flat that Ned and Dewey have. And so we follow Summer in, and she's on the phone about like, if you really want us, you just better stop lowballing us. Can can imagine she's talking to some like really professional adult like band manager or music person, and she's like 10 years old telling them what's what. And then we see the band practicing, but we also see that Ned is teaching like
It's so
young
cute.
kids, young kids guitar. And we get this kind of like final song where again everyone gets their moment to shine. And as the credits roll, and they acknowledge that it's a film, where they go like, "The film is nearly over,"
Yeah.
like
Yeah, it's clearly just having fun. Like I really love that. It doesn't end. Like, but the thing I love about this film is like it doesn't have like a the end. It just is like
no,
no, and it carries on, and like I don't know, like it's something really like nice about that. And
yeah, that's a really good point.
yeah, there's no like, and they've all lived happily ever after. It's like, it's life's gonna go on. It might be up and down for everyone in here, but like in this moment, like they're having
Yeah,
fun.
they're having fun, and like they have the space to have the fun, and it's because of Dewey. Dewey has created this space for these kids to express themselves, to like nurture their talent and have fun. Like that's the most important thing, right? It's like to have fun. And like that's the end of the film. Caitlin, have we covered everything you wanted to cover?
I'm just on my little like I've got a tiny list. I think so, yeah. I mean it's a very interesting film. It's been really interesting to look at it in this way and pick apart kind of bits and interrogate it, and yeah, and just made me love Jack Black more, to be honest. I already loved him a lot, but I'm like, he
Yeah.
really is just like the most charismatic like film star of the past like 20-30 years. Like he's so good.
He's an absolute diamond, and I'm really glad that this film exists. I think like I can't imagine anyone else in this role. That duality between like being like a singer or like a rock singer and also like a really charismatic comedy actor. It's you were saying at the very beginning that Mike White wrote this with Jack Black in mind, and I can't imagine him not being in it. Like it's
Yeah.
perfect. And I know like the kids and well the cast is all still pretty well connected. There was like a 10-year anniversary in 2013 where all the kids came along and Jack Black was there. I think Mike White went. Like so there's still like a legacy that continues within the cast, which means that they obviously had fun,
Yeah.
which is really nice. And I think like that fun and that relationship they obviously had kind of comes on screen, and you want to be part of that group. You want to have like that, going back to teacher, you want to have that teacher, and that's really positive, where like unfortunately teachers are so influential to who we become as adults. you know Apart from our parents, are probably our next like most time we spend with adults, right, or teachers, or certain teachers. And yeah, Dewey is a very, as much as he's not a teacher, he's a very influential teacher to these kids. And I just think, yeah, it's a really good story. It's feel good.
Really feel good. And it's funny. I like to think I'm carrying on the Dewey Finn legacy, because whenever I facilitate with, especially with young people, they tell me that like we love it when you teach us, because it just feels like we're on lunch all the time. So teenager said that to me once, and I was like, that is the goal. Like
Oh,
just
what a
like
compliment.
play and like, yeah, exactly. And so I'm like bringing the Dewey Finn legacy forward.
Oh my God, you're carrying that torch. Well done,
Mm-hmm.
you. What a compliment. Ah, amazing. So at the end of Facts and Film, we rate our films based on ourselves, depending on how well we believe that they represent fat and other body types. So, Caitlin, out of 5 Caitlins, how much would you rate School of Rock?
Can I do halves?
Yes, of course
I'm
you
gonna do
can.
4.5 Caitlins,
Yeah.
because it's not quite perfect, but it's very good.
Yeah, it is very good. I think that's a really fair rating. I'm gonna be maybe a little bit lower. I think I'm gonna give it 4 Hannahs. I think there is some negative stereotype with like the fat slob idea of him at the
Mm.
beginning, but ultimately like it does right itself, and it's like Dewey's character doesn't change because he loses weight, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
His
it's
character,
not a physical.
it's not like it's not like he stopped doing bad habits. His character development comes from how he treats people, And obviously how you treat people doesn't matter, like, you know, on your body size or what you eat or, you know, any, or like how much exercise you do. It doesn't matter if any of that. It's all internal stuff. So I think that's actually really positive, which is why I'll give it 4 instead of like 3 or 3.5. Awesome. Well, Caitlin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been so good to talk about School of Rock in massive detail. I think we went in. I don't think there's not a stone that hasn't been uncovered during this podcast. This truly might be longer than the film itself.
I think it will be, and I can only apologize. But you know, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. So where can the lovely listeners find you if they want to hear more from you?
Mostly on Instagram and Twitter. I am at Kate M. Kearns. That's CAITM KEARNS. And you can find links to like my work. So I'm a writer. I like to write stuff that kind of is very heavy, pardon the pun, on fat rap, and also queer rap and disabled rap as a kind of fat queer disabled weirdo from Belfast. So yeah,
what a tagline.
I said that, I actually said that in an interview yesterday.
Did you? That's great.
Yeah.
And
I was like, take it, you know, that's it, that's all you need to know. But yeah, so you can find links to my work there and my general day-to-day nonsense.
Awesome. Thank you, Caitlin. And the listeners can find the podcast at Fats on Film on Instagram and Twitter, and myself at Queen Bee Says on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Well, thank you so much for listening, everyone, and I will see you at the next one, and stay fat.